Hello everyone, my name is Mike and I'm here to talk to you about why is it confusing to buy a MacBook Pro in 2018. Let's just jump into it. I posted a video last week and oh boy did I get some great feedback. I got probably the most amount of comments I've ever got in my life on that topic, and I wanted to really do a follow-up video to that just to explain where I was coming from, also talk about a few of the points that you guys came up with on that video as well, and also just to help you out when buying your next MacBook. So what's causing this confusion? Well, even when I was structuring this video, I was even struggling to find out, okay, how am I going to make this as easy as possible for everyone to understand? So what I did was, I came up with a spreadsheet. Now spreadsheets are normally boring, but hopefully this spreadsheet will help you determine whether you should go for a MacBook, MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, or a MacBook Pro with touch bar, both 13 and 15 inch. I've done pricings for the US market and the UK market. I'm sorry if I didn't include all the other markets. This video would have probably taken me ages to release because I would have had to look at every single market, but I thought most of you guys will be able to understand both the UK and US pricing. Now, if we jump into the spreadsheets, I'll talk about how I've structured it. As you can see, I've put all the popular MacBooks up on the top, and then I've also put some key specs on each of the MacBooks as well, because I feel like a lot of you are going to be requiring different things out of your MacBook. So at the top, we've got Touch ID. We've also got the keyboard generation as well, and I'll explain why that's important. I've also detailed the graphics of each MacBook. I've also got the processor generation. I've also got the Geekbench scores as well, both the single and multi-core. Now, these Geekbench scores, take them with a pinch of salt. Obviously, these aren't real world examples, but this will give you a good idea of performance when comparing both the processors and the generation of each processor. We've also got the weight of each MacBook as well, as that may be important to you. We've also got Bluetooth as well. Now, a lot of you may not know, but a lot of the MacBooks have got the Bluetooth 4.2, and only the MacBook Pros with Touch Bar have got the latest generation 5.0 Bluetooth. Now, this may be important to you if you really want to get the most out of your MacBook. And I've also put the number of USB-C ports as I can. I know that a lot of you care about this as well. I've also put the battery life in terms of web hours. This is sort of the worst case scenarios out of each one. As you can see, I've also done some popular configurations, or what I think will be popular configurations of each specification. Now, there were two major things that people were mentioning about these MacBooks. One was the processor, and the second one was the keyboard. So what is the issue with the processor? Now, the MacBook Air 2018 has got a lot more power than the old MacBook Airs, but when you're comparing it to the other models, you may be wondering, okay, so what is the difference? Well, there's a few differences. First of all, we've got the 8th generation processor, so it's running Intel's latest generation processors. The second thing to mention is that even though it is the latest generation, we are running a Y series processor instead of a U series processor. What does that mean, Mike? Well, essentially what it means is that it's a low power processor. So it's not as fast as the MacBook Pros because it's a Y series processor, whereas the U series processor is more for performance. And the other thing to mention about the processor is not only is it a low power processor, it's also clocked at a lower speed as well. So these processors, even though yes, it's got the latest one, these aren't quick. Do not be expecting to have a MacBook Air and it be a powerhouse. It's just not designed for that. The reason why a lot of people care about the CPU, for those who don't know, is CPU is very important for video editors and photographers. The reason why is because programs like Final Cut or Adobe Premiere, use the CPU to render and encode videos. Now, there are lots of factors when considering the CPU, and it is the number of threads, the clock speed, and obviously its multi-threaded performance, so the power of each core as well. The other thing to mention is the keyboards. Now, on the MacBooks, it's a little bit confusing because some of them are running the 2nd gen keyboard, and the others, the latest ones, are running the 3rd generation keyboard. Now, why is that important? There were reports that the 2nd gen keyboard has got issues with dust. So dust is easily able to enter the keys and cause them to fail. Now, the problem is you cannot remove these keys, or not very easily anyway. So what it meant was that people using these keyboards on a day-to-day basis were finding that the keyboards were failing. Now, the 3rd generation keyboard has got a membrane that is resistant to dust, and it's meant to decrease the failure rate of the keyboard. Whether that does solve the issue or not, we'll find out. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, I think it is a bit ridiculous that Apple haven't just rolled this 3rd generation keyboard out to all of the models, because if the 2nd generation keyboard is known to fail, then why aren't Apple doing everything in their power to just get rid of the 2nd gen and just implement the 3rd gen? It doesn't make sense to me, especially when you're spending that kind of money. I just don't get it, Apple. I just don't get it. Now, if we have a look at the spreadsheet again, if you have about £2,000 to spend, then definitely the MacBook Pro with Touch Bar 13-inch is the one to go for. It's light, it has, like I said, the 3rd generation keyboard, it has Touch ID. The screen is one thing to mention as well. So it has a better screen than all the other MacBooks because it has 500 nits of brightness. We have the wide color gamut P3 as well. We've got better graphics and the amazing 8th generation processor, and it's a 4-core processor as well. So much better than the dual cores that is on the MacBook Pro 2017 and the MacBook Air 2018. So if you are looking for a light, powerful MacBook, then this is the one to go for. But the issue is what if you don't have money for a MacBook Pro with Touch Bar 2018 and you've got money to afford either a MacBook Pro 2017 or a MacBook Air 2018? That's where it gets a little bit confusing. So if we take a look at the spreadsheet again, if you don't use video editing software or similar, and your usage is mainly just surfing the web, watching movies, and if you're a student, for example, doing things like essays, assignments, then the MacBook Air is great. It's secure with the Touch ID, so as students you'll be okay and not worrying about your stuff being stolen. It's also got great battery life, so for an intense day, whether it be student or at work, you should find that it has plenty of power. And with the 3rd generation keyboard, you're not going to have issues with it failing. So if you're not planning on changing your laptop for the next 3, 4, 5 years, you're not going to be having any issues with the dust. However, if you do require more power, for example, if you are a photo editor or a video editor and your budget doesn't quite stretch to the MacBook Pro with Touch Bar 2018, then you have to go for the MacBook Pro 2017. And there are things that you're going to have to think about. Now, the reason why I say the MacBook Pro 2017 instead of the MacBook Air is because, firstly, the multi-core performance is far better. So it's going to render videos and encode videos much, much quicker. The other thing to mention is, even though the MacBook Air has got a Retina display, the Retina display on the MacBook Pro 2017 is much, much better. It has better brightness. It does up to 500 nits of brightness, whereas I believe the MacBook Air only has about 300 or 320 nits of brightness. So it's a much dimmer display. Also, the main thing for photo and video editors is the P3 wide color. That is so important for video editors and photo editors. You need to have that. But if you do go for this laptop, be careful with the keyboard. Now, there is a suggestion I would make to those of you who are going to be buying the MacBook Pro 2017. It is a little bit inconvenient, but I would say invest yourself into one of these. These are very, very inexpensive. You can pick these up for a couple of quid and they just slot over your keyboard, and that will help protect the dust from entering the keys and causing them to fail. Now, some of you mentioned that the MacBook Pro 2017 is going to be discontinued very, very soon. And yeah, I believe you. I do think it will be discontinued very, very soon. But I think that's going to be a great shame, because if you are a power user, Apple are basically going to be forcing you to spend that extra money. So you either fork up or you have to buy something used. And a lot of us don't like buying used stuff because it's out of warranty and we don't know how the computer's been used beforehand. I also think that the MacBook is going to be discontinued as well, because Apple a couple of years ago were talking about this MacBook revolutionizing the ultra-lightbook space, but we haven't seen an update. So we haven't got the 3rd generation keyboard on the MacBooks. We also haven't got the latest generation processor in the MacBooks. My theory is that Apple are going to be discontinuing the MacBook and then investing heavily into the iPad Pro line. I think people who are going to be looking at the MacBook are now going to be looking at the iPad Pros, just because you get a lot more features and a lot more power, and to be honest, a lot better value for money than the MacBook. But that is obviously my theory, and obviously a lot of you guys have sort of echoed that same theory as well. So in conclusion, if you've got about £1,000 to spend, I wouldn't recommend buying the MacBook. Go from iPad Pro. I think you're going to get much better value for money there. If you've got between £1,200 to £1,500, then really look at the spreadsheet and decide what's important to you and decide from there. And then my ultimate recommendation is, if you've got the money, to go for the MacBook Pro 13-inch with Touch Bar 2018. I think this is the best value for money. I know you guys are going to have a lot of thoughts on this, so please leave your comments down below. Now, I've rambled on a lot in this video, but I hope I've made some valid points. And please leave a comment below. I really want to find out what you think about this topic, and whether what I have said is correct or justified. I really do read every comment, so please let me know what you think. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up. That'll be awesome. If you like the content on this channel, subscribe, see more of this face. But until then, look after yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye everyone.